The neighborhood had always been the kind of place people dreamed of living in: freshly painted homes lined up in neat rows, lawns trimmed to perfection, American flags fluttering gently on porches, and children racing their bikes down cul-de-sac streets while delivery vans came and went without much thought. From the outside, it looked like suburban paradise, but anyone who lived there knew that a storm was always brewing just beneath the surface, and at the eye of that storm was one woman, Karen Whitfield, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association. Karen wasn't merely the president of the HOA, she was its embodiment, a sharp-tongued enforcer of every petty rule and bylaw, wielding her clipboard like a weapon. Neighbors learned to duck behind hedges when she patrolled, and families whispered complaints about the fines she issued for lawns a half-inch too long, garbage bins rolled out an hour too early, or Christmas lights still glowing past January. To outsiders, she looked like a woman devoted to order, but those who lived under her gaze felt the truth: she thrived on control. And then, slowly, people began to notice something worse. Mail was disappearing. At first, no one suspected her. A birthday card that never arrived, a bank statement that mysteriously vanished, a package that tracking claimed was delivered but was nowhere to be found. It was easy enough to blame porch pirates or the Postal Service. People muttered but never pressed too hard. After all, accusing someone of stealing mail wasn't a casual neighborhood complaint, it was federal. Still, as weeks turned into months, the missing mail multiplied. Mrs. Delgado swore she saw Karen hovering at the communal mailboxes, pretending to shuffle envelopes that clearly weren't hers. Another neighbor noticed that packages always seemed to disappear on days Karen walked her dog. But because Karen ran the HOA, she wielded power. Accusing her was dangerous. If you crossed Karen, your lawn got flagged, your mailbox color suddenly violated guidelines, and your driveway was suddenly in need of HOA-approved resurfacing. Silence was easier. Until one man decided he had had enough. Michael Jennings wasn't the kind to stir up trouble. In his early 30s, quiet, polite, and working remotely as a financial analyst, he mostly kept to himself. His house was tidy, his lawn immaculate, his lifestyle deliberately unremarkable, the sort of neighbor who waved when waved at but never invited chaos. Unfortunately, his house sat 2 doors down from Karen's, and over the years he had collected a stack of violation notices from her that felt less about rules and more about power. He might have ignored her meddling forever, but when his mother's medical documents went missing, followed by his own prescription refills, the quiet man decided the line had been crossed. Missing mail wasn't an inconvenience, it was dangerous. So he began watching. From the office window upstairs, Michael had a perfect view of the row of mailboxes near the neighborhood entrance. He started jotting times in a notebook: when the mail truck came, when neighbors collected their letters, and when Karen appeared. She always came not long after the carrier left, Daisy trotting obediently at her side, and she always lingered longer than anyone else. Suspicion turned to certainty the day he parked his car near the boxes and left a small camera hidden on the dashboard. The next morning, the footage showed Karen arrive, glance around, and in one quick motion slide her hand into the box next to hers. When she walked away, her tote bag bulged a little larger than before. Michael's chest pounded as he replayed the footage. He finally had her. But evidence alone wasn't enough. This wasn't HOA business or a matter for the local police. This was theft of federal property. So he picked up the phone and called the United States Postal Inspection Service. He expected to be brushed off, but instead, the agent on the line listened intently, asking pointed questions. When Michael explained he had video evidence of the neighborhood HOA president stealing mail, there was silence before the agent replied in a low, steady voice: "Mail theft is a federal offense. We'll need to take a closer look." 2 days later, a black sedan pulled quietly into the cul-de-sac. Out stepped Inspector David Harlan, a tall man in his 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He carried a leather folder and spoke in deliberate tones that gave Michael both reassurance and unease. In Michael's living room, David studied the footage carefully, replaying the incriminating moments. "This isn't porch piracy," he said finally. "She's systematic. She knows when the mail comes, she knows how to blend in, and she knows exactly what she's looking for. That makes her dangerous." The word hung heavy in the air. Dangerous. Karen. The same woman who fined children for sidewalk chalk was being described like a criminal mastermind. The plan was simple in theory but delicate in execution: they would set a sting. The postal inspectors would introduce test packages, envelopes and parcels designed to look like ordinary mail but fitted with trackers and coded decoys. If Karen touched even one, she would be stepping into federal quicksand. "We need her red-handed," David explained. "Surveillance is good, but prosecutors want undeniable proof. Once she takes these test items, it's over." Michael agreed to cooperate, even allowing inspectors to stage equipment near his home. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of control returning. Over the following week, David disguised himself as a postal worker conducting delivery audits. He wore a reflective vest, carried a clipboard, and blended into the routine of the street. But his eyes were always on Karen. He noticed how she arrived within minutes of the mail truck, her tote bag swinging by her side, her conversations with neighbors carefully timed distractions. She wasn't sloppy, she was calculating. That only made the sting more necessary. Thursday afternoon arrived with a heavy sky and the sound of cicadas humming in the heat. The inspectors had already placed the test envelopes into the mailboxes, innocent-looking white and manila envelopes among the rest. Michael sat inside a surveillance van parked discreetly down the block, his heart hammering. "This is your neighborhood," David had told him. "You deserve to see how this ends." On the monitor, Karen appeared exactly on schedule, daisy trotting, tote bag swinging. She glanced around, then slid her hand inside the first box. "She's doing it," Michael whispered. David's voice remained calm but electric. "She needs to take one of the planted pieces." And then she did. Karen pulled out a glossy white envelope. An envelope carrying a hidden tracker, and tucked it into her bag without hesitation. David gave a sharp nod. "That's it. She's in federal territory now." Two unmarked cars rolled forward in perfect coordination, boxing her in. Daisy barked at the sudden movement as inspectors stepped out, badges flashing. "Ma'am, step away from the mailbox. U.S. Postal Inspection Service." Karen's face drained of color, her tote slipping lower on her arm, stolen letters spilling into view. What is this? You can't just barge in. I'm the HOA president." Her voice rose with shrill indignation, but David's tone was steady as stone. "Karen Whitfield, you are under investigation for federal mail theft. We have you on surveillance. Drop the bag." Neighbors peeked from windows and porches, watching their self-appointed ruler cornered like a criminal. Karen clutched the tote tighter, eyes darting as if weighing an escape route. For a moment, Michael thought she might actually run. But Daisy yapped wildly, the inspectors stood firm, and the watching eyes of the entire neighborhood pinned her in place. The tote hit the ground with a thud. An inspector retrieved the planted envelope with gloved hands, holding it up like an executioner showing the blade. "This is federal property. You touched it. That's a felony punishable by prison." Karen's bravado shattered. Tears welled as inspectors cuffed her hands behind her back. "This is a mistake. I was protecting the neighborhood. There have been thefts." Her voice cracked with desperation. David remained unmoved. "The neighborhood doesn't need protection from you. You've been stealing from them." As she was led into the back of the car, neighbors exchanged hushed words, some shocked, others almost relieved. For Michael, a strange cocktail of triumph and pity swirled in his chest. The woman who had terrorized their community for years was finally powerless, but the story didn't end with her arrest on the street. Over the next weeks, the case made its way into federal court. The evidence was overwhelming: video surveillance, the test mail, statements from neighbors whose packages had vanished. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture. Karen had been stealing for months, possibly years, not just out of nosiness but for gain. Credit card offers, financial statements, even prescription medications had been found hidden in her home during the search. The image of the HOA president collapsed into the reality of a petty thief entangled in federal crime. The trial was swift. The jury watched the same footage Michael had captured, saw the evidence displayed piece by piece, and listened to neighbors recount their losses. Karen tried to defend herself, claiming she had only been checking for suspicious activity and protecting residents, but her excuses collapsed under the weight of the proof. The judge's gavel fell with finality. Guilty of federal mail theft, guilty of possession of stolen property, guilty of tampering with government correspondence. When the sentence was read, 18 months in federal prison and heavy fines, Karen broke down in tears.